All right, you sick fucks. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep on James Bond. And not that pansy-ass movie Bond. I'm talking about the OG literary Bond.
Right.
We got some intel straight from the source, Wikipedia.
Okay.
And we brought in an actual Bond scholar to help us unpack this shit.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
First up, I gotta know, is it true this dude's based on real people?
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes Bond so compelling. He's rooted in reality, but amped up to 11.
Yeah.
Fleming knew these guys. Like Conrad O'Brien, French, a spy who skied through Nazi-occupied Norway.
Wait,
Yeah.
seriously?
Yeah.
That's some hardcore shit.
And there was Bill Biffy Dunderdale, always rocking a tailored suit and driving around in a chauffeur-driven Rolls-Royce.
So basically, Fleming took these crazy motherfuckers,
Yeah,
added a shitload of booze and gadgets, and boom, James Bond was born.
pretty much. But don't forget, Fleming was a pretty interesting guy himself. Bond's cynicism,
Yeah.
his taste for luxury, his detached view of the world, that's all Fleming.
Okay, let's talk about the name. James Bond.
Ah!
Seriously, it sounds like some boring accountant.
That was Fleming's point. He wanted a completely bland name. He wanted the dullest, plainest name he could find.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you expect some badass name like Xavier Shadowhawk or some shit, but James Bond throws you off guard.
Right?
Can you imagine being the real James Bond? Some bird scientist dude just minding his own business?
Yeah.
That's got to be a mindfuck.
It's like the ultimate case of mistaken identity.
Okay, let's get down to business. What's Bond's story?
Well, it's not exactly rainbows and butterflies.
Hit me with it.
Orphaned at 11, kicked out of Eton for girl trouble, and lost his virginity in Paris at 16.
Damn. Talk about a fucked up childhood.
It's like Fleming intentionally gave him this tragic past to make him operate outside the line.
Right. The dude is a government-sanctioned assassin.
Killing people is like another Tuesday for this guy.
But you got to wonder, how does all that trauma shape his personality? Is he
Yeah.
just a cold-hearted killer? Or is there something more going on?
That's the million-dollar question. In the books, there are moments where Bond reflects on his kills, but he always buries those feelings under a mountain of cigarettes, booze, and fast cars.
Speaking of vices, let's talk about Bond's habit.
Oh boy, this dude was a walking health hazard.
70 cigarettes a day, enough booze to kill a small elephant, and a serious adrenaline addiction. It's like he was trying to die between missions.
That's part of his appeal, though, isn't it? He lives on the edge, embraces excess in every form.
But 70 cigarettes a day, that's fucking insane.
Even by 1960s standards, that's a death wish.
Okay, so we got a death wish,
Yeah.
a taste for the finer things,
Mm-hmm.
and a license to kill. But was Bond just a psychopath?
That's where the license to kill comes in. Bond's in this moral gray area where killing is a necessary evil, a tool of the state.
But does he ever feel bad about it?
There are times when Bond grapples with his actions. He's not a robot, but he's conditioned to suppress any guilt or doubt.
So he's a walking contradiction, a suave gentleman who's also a trained killer, a patriot who operates outside the law, a man both attracted to and repelled by danger.
Absolutely. And Bond's character didn't end with Fleming. Other authors continued the series.
Wait, what? Other people wrote Bond books?
Yep.
Did they try to make him more PC or some shit?
Some did. John Gardner tried, but it didn't really work.
Totally agree. You can't erase the problematic stuff without acknowledging the context.
Right. Other authors, like Raymond Denson, embraced Bond's darker side.
So it's like each author put their own spin on Bond.
Exactly. That's what makes it so fascinating. It's
Yeah.
constantly evolving, being reinterpreted, reimagined.
Okay. But what about this young Bond thing? Was he already banging chicks
Mm-hmm.
and ordering martinis as a teenager?
Actually, the Young Bond series,
Yeah.
written by Charlie Hickson, is
Yeah.
really good. It explores Bond's years at Eton, his
Yeah.
early brushes with danger.
It's like a superhero origin story.
Exactly. Hickson delves into how Bond developed his skills, his taste for adventure, his ability to stay cool under pressure.
Not just schoolboy pranks.
Definitely not. The Young Bond series is a great way to understand him.
All right. This is blowing my mind. So we got OG Bond, rebooted Bond,
Mm-hmm.
and teenage Bond. It's like a whole Bond multiverse. But before we get lost in the rabbit hole, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
And we can't forget about the cultural impact.
Right.
Movies, video games, comic books.
The dude's everywhere.
Bond is a global icon.
But you know what always gets me? The contradictions.
Mhm.
This guy's a cold-blooded killer, but he also loves the finer things in life. Expensive suits, vintage champagne, gourmet meals.
Oh, he's a walking contradiction.
It's like he's trying to balance out all the fucked up shit
Mhm.
with a taste of the good life.
That's a great point. It speaks to that complex nature. a government assassin who quotes Shakespeare and sips fine Bordeaux.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is a guy who just blew up a secret lair,
Right.
killed a dozen henchmen,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's enjoying a perfectly cooked steak.
Exactly. That tension between brutal action
Yeah.
and refined taste.
And don't even get me started on the women.
Oh, yeah. Bond wouldn't be Bond without the ladies.
We're talking Honey Rider, Pussy Galore. These women are more than just arm candy.
You got that right. They're intelligent, resourceful, and often the key to Bond's success. Absolutely. Fleming's Bond girls were strong, independent women.
But let's be real. There's some seriously problematic shit in those early books, especially when it comes to gender and race.
Yeah, Fleming was a product of his time. Some of his views are pretty cringeworthy today.
Totally. We got to call out the bullshit when we see it.
Right. It's important to acknowledge those flaws while also appreciating the cultural impact.
That's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We're dissecting this guy, warts and all.
Exactly. We're peeling back the layers,
Mm-hmm.
looking at the good and the bad.
Speaking of interpretations,
What?
let's talk about the actors who've played Bond.
Okay.
We've had Sean Connery's swagger, Daniel Craig's intensity. How have these guys shaped our perception of Bond?
It's fascinating to see how each actor brought something unique to the role. Connery set the standard with his charm and wit. Roger Moore brought a later touch. Timothy Dalton went darker and more psychological. And Pierce Brosnan was all charm and sophistication.
And then Craig came in and turned Bond into this gritty, emotionally damaged badass.
Right. Craig's Bond is a man haunted by his past. He's wrestling with his own mortality.
He's a Bond for the 21st century.
Exactly.
It's like each Bond reflects the era he was created in. Connery's Bond was a product of the Cold War. Craig's Bond is a reflection of our post-9/11 world.
That's a great observation. Bond is a cultural mirror, reflecting our anxieties, our desires,
Wow.
our evolving definition of heroism.
So Bond is a reflection of ourselves.
In a way, yes. He allows us to explore the darker parts of human nature, to indulge in fantasies of power and escape.
And drink martinis while wearing a tuxedo.
Of course. Can't forget the martinis.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the guys who inspired Bond, the authors who wrote about him, the actors who've played him. But what about Ian Fleming himself?
Ugh, Fleming. His life is almost as interesting as Bond's.
Was he a real spy?
Not exactly a field agent, but he did work for British naval intelligence during World War II. He planned covert operations, gathered intel, even helped create real spy gadgets.
So he wasn't just making this shit up.
Definitely not. He used his own experiences as inspiration, his knowledge of espionage, his encounters with all sorts of characters.
Like he took his own life, added some vodka, and created the ultimate spy fantasy.
You could say that, but there's more to it than that.
What was it about his writing that made Bond so popular?
I think it's that blend of realism and fantasy. He grounded Bond in the real world of espionage, but he also gave him this larger-than-life quality.
He's a symbol of freedom, power, masculinity, and the dude's got style.
Oh, yeah. He knows how to dress, how to drink, how to handle himself. He's aspirational. We want to be like Bond, at least have a taste of his life.
The fast cars, the exotic locations, the beautiful women. We want to believe we could do what he does.
That fantasy of power and control.
But Bond's world is also pretty dark and dangerous.
That's true. He's constantly facing death, betrayal, moral compromise. It's a fantasy, but it comes with a price.
Be careful what you wish for. You might just get it.
Exactly.
Okay, let's lighten things up a bit. Bond's got flaws, demons, a dark side. But there's also a lot of fun to be had with his character.
Definitely. The gadgets, the car chases, the explosions, it's pure entertainment.
If you could have one Bond gadget,
Yeah.
what would it be?
That's a tough one. So many to choose from, but I think I'd go with the Aston Martin DB5.
Classic. Ejector seats.
Machine guns, the smoke screen, the ultimate spy car.
And those car chases. Bond always seems to be one step ahead.
It's like he's got a sixth sense for driving.
And don't forget the explosions.
Oh, yeah. Bond movies wouldn't be the same without them.
It's like they took all the best action movie tropes and cranked them up to 11.
And Bond is always right in the middle of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotta ask. Do you think Bond will ever die?
That's a good question. He's been around for over 60 years. And he's still going strong. I think as long as there are stories to be told, Bond will continue to exist.
So he's immortal.
In a way, yes. He's a symbol of adventure, danger, the eternal struggle between good and evil.
Damn. That's deep. All right, folks. We're going to take a minute to process all this Bond madness. When we come back, we'll wrap this deep dive up with some final thoughts on the legacy of James Bond. Stay tuned. So we spent like an hour talking about this dude. Is the Bond life all it's cracked up to be?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Fast cars, fancy suits, but also constant threat of death, emotional baggage, moral compromises.
Yeah, it's got to take a toll.
It's a fantasy, no doubt. But under the surface, there's a lot of darkness.
Yeah, it's not all sunshine and roses. 1 minute you're sipping champagne with a supermodel,
sure.
or dodging bullets.
And the physical toll. Bond is always getting shot, stabbed, poisoned. It's a miracle he's still alive.
Seriously. This dude's practically superhuman.
But is it all just a facade? Is there a broken man under that cool exterior?
That's the question that keeps us coming back for more.
Right. We want to believe he's more than a machine, that he actually feels something.
And Fleming does give us those moments, like when he has to kill, or when he loses someone he cares about. You see those flickers of humanity.
Exactly. He's not just a killer, he's a complex dude, fighting his own demons.
And he's got a pretty fucked up way of dealing with them. I mean,
Yeah.
70 cigarettes a day.
Bond isn't exactly known for his healthy habits.
True.
He buries himself in action. It's self-destructive.
Yeah.
But it's also part of what makes him so interesting.
He's a train wreck you can't look away from. Okay, so the Bond life is a mixed bag. But why has this character lasted so long?
I think it's a few things. First, the escapism. Bond offers us this world of adventure and intrigue.
Right, it's a fantasy.
But it taps into something primal.
It's a vacation from the mundane. We get to live vicariously through this badass.
Exactly. And then there's Bond himself. He's complex, contradictory. Yeah. He's a hero, but he's also flawed.
He's the ultimate anti-hero. Breaks all the rules.
But still comes out on top.
And let's not forget the style. The dude is the definition of cool.
Absolutely. He's confident. Yeah. He's got swagger.
He's the guy we all want to be.
That's the magic of James Bond. He's a reflection of us, our fantasies, our anxieties.
Deep. So final verdict. Hero. Villain.
I think he's a bit of both. He's a product of his time, a reflection of our culture, and a symbol of our fascination with this world.
Well said. I think it's time for a martini. To James Bond, the man who taught us how to live dangerously, love recklessly, and look damn good doing it. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
And thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.